Hey guys, and welcome back to another edition of the Weekly Hustle. I'm Kshitij,
And I'm Kabir.
and today we are going to be talking about which is something very, very important, something that we face on a very regular basis, and these are the legal issues in our business.
Especially when it comes to money and when one comes to the terms of the contract, it's very important that all of you protect yourself from any kind of confusion or any kind of irregularities for either tax
Yeah.
or law. It's very important for you to know the real things so that you can do the right thing.
So the thing is that over the years, what I felt is that most of us, when we're starting off, we don't do written contracts. We do not send our clients terms and conditions. We do not have deliverables marked properly at times. We do send proposals.
Yeah.
We do set expectations, but 99% of the times we do most of the things verbally,
Yeah.
which have a tendency of biting us in the back if the project goes south, if it does not work. They have a tendency of really biting us in the back. So, Kabir, what do you think people should actually start with when they are either pitching a project, one, two, once they do get the project and they want to go ahead?
I think, first we need to analyze quickly why such a thing happens.
Yeah.
And I think it's a matter of the Indian psychology that we feel that, if you have something in writing, in a way you are, you don't trust the other person, or
Right.
the other person doesn't trust you. But I think it's just the opposite. It's putting everything clear, it's putting everything on paper so that there is no scope for any kind of confusion.
Lovely.
So, what happens is that when a young photographer or a young videographer goes to a client to say that, here is my contract, the client goes, whoa, you don't trust me? You think I'm not going to pay you? And the photographer says, no, 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 I need the business and I definitely don't want to antagonize you. So, forget about the contract and, just let's get started.
Yeah.
But there are ways to work around that to make sure that all your terms and conditions are clearly understood. So what I did when I came back from the US, where it was very common for even small jobs or small photographers to have a contract,
Right.
right? And you would have seen this
Right.
in your experience overseas as well. Um, so I built it into my invoice,
Nice.
right? So that there is no separate signing. And one of the terms in the contract in the invoice was that if you pay me an invoice or if I start work, then automatically the other terms are also accepted by you. Which means that if you've already paid me in advance, or if I start shooting for you, which means you know that these terms are there and you have accepted the terms.
Lovely.
Hence, everything is already accepted. So
So-
they don't really need to sign it.
So, but there are times when we have a huge list of terms and conditions,
Yeah.
and the clients go a little like, we don't have the time to read it.
Yeah.
They don't go through it properly. Then they come back to us saying, okay, this wasn't mentioned to us before, and then we tell them, well, did you read the
Yeah.
terms and conditions? And then they say, no, well, you should have explained it to us. So, what is the procedure that one should follow once they do embed this in their invoices or anything?
See, luckily now what has happened is that even email communication
Yeah.
is now admissible as a communication or as a legal document
Right.
for you to be able to say that yes, this was discussed, and if there's a response to that, that means it was read and
Right.
accepted, right? So ideally, either if you're working with an agency or if you're working with an MNC or a large company, in that case, it's okay to give your contract.
Nice.
When it comes to individual business owners, that's companies driven by a single person who you want them to be on your side. In there, it becomes a little tricky, but yes, it's still very important for you to be clear about your terms. Before you start work, send out an email requesting that please acknowledge the receipt of this email. And all your communication that you do in terms of pricing, in terms of dates, in terms of deliverables, in terms of expectations, all that should ideally be done on email. If not done on email, but before you start, send out one email with all things written down that this is my understanding, and if you are okay, we are ready to begin.
Very nice. Very nice.
So that is something that I feel everybody should follow. These are simple things,
Lovely.
but it really keeps things clear and simple. And it's not only for you, but it's also for the client. Sometimes you forget that, okay, I needed to do this, But if it's all on paper, it's all on email, you know that, okay, this is something I forgot and I need to do this if I don't want trouble. So it's for you as well as for the client.
So this is another thing that I wanted to discuss and I want to ask you always is there are times when our clients request us to not take the proper route in terms of payments, like they would say take a cash payment or maybe do it a little differently. Does that email or that proposal still hold stand if we get cash payments?
Yeah, of course, of course. See, the thing is, the way it works is that if you, as far as the cash is concerned, I mean, cash till the time it exists in the economy, it's absolutely. If you read the actually a note, it says it's legal tender.
Yeah.
That means any exchange of that is also a legal undertaking, right? So it can be done against cash, it can be done against check, bank transfer, Paytm, or whatever means of money exchange is done. It's absolutely legal, right? Yes, but the only thing that is different in cash is at times people choose to do it because they don't need to show it as an income in their bank accounts. Hence, to say that you got that money becomes a little difficult. So from a tax point of view, people kind of play things around. But till the time you have an invoice and you have terms and conditions already set out, you know what? Pay your taxes, everything stays clean that way.
So since you mentioned tax, one of the most bothering taxes for me has been the three-letter word GST. So how do people actually, what are the tips that you would give to people to deal with GST?
Unfortunately, yes, GST has been a pain in the where for business owners. So, and you've dealt with it, I've dealt with it, and we've had a share of trouble with it. So, okay, first things first, that if you have an income of 20 lakhs a month, a year, not per month, sorry, but 20 lakhs a year, that is when GST actually kicks in.
Okay.
So if you're starting your work and you don't expect to make that kind of money in a year's time, and it could be, it's not a calendar year but a financial year, then don't worry about getting GST or charging for GST and things like that. You are fine. But the moment you go even 1 rupee above 20 lakhs, then all the transactions that you do, right from rupee 1 to 20 lakh plus 1, all that would be under the purview of GST. Okay, so that is something watch out for. If you think it's going to be a great year for you and right now you are at 10 lakhs but you expect to be at 40 lakhs, get your GST registration done. Second thing is best to go with a CA, somebody who knows ins and outs of GST, how filing is done. If you are on a monthly filing or if you are on a 3-monthly filing, there are, of course, based on your business and the ticket size, etc., there are different kinds of filing that you can get. But best is to have a CA who would do it for you. It'll be a small charge, but at least there is no problem or lapse or any problems that you may occur with if you are making some mistakes.
Very true.
Because still the system is not 100% set. There are problems. You faced it.
I have.
And there are issues that you get notices for no fault of yours, etc. So best is to have somebody who understands the system, who can work with it. And it's a small cost to pay.
Okay, now coming back to contracts, which we mentioned before. So what do you think that one person should actually put in their contract? What should a contract really comprise of when you're making money?
Absolutely. So either in terms of having a separate contract, which could be a legal, court paper or things like that. Many people may not want to sign that and feel kind of, they may feel little, they may feel that you are trying to push a little bit too much to make it very legal. But if you want to make it as a part of your invoice itself, right, terms and conditions in the invoice, then nobody has a problem with that.
Because I think then they feel that it's just part of the terms. And
part of the terms, very clear. What we've also done in the past is that maybe some of the detailed deliverables, which have descriptions and things like that, instead of putting that into the invoice, we've also sent an email to state that these are the final deliverables or for deliver, and then we refer to that in the invoice, that final deliverables, sent an email dated so and so.
So basically that could be like setting the expectations of the client and really getting them to know what they should be expecting from us or what they should be really ready for.
Correct. So, and a lot of times, Kshitij, what happens is that there are some things to be done by the client.
Right.
For instance, maybe in a shoot, the location has to be organized by them.
Nice. Yeah.
So you can't assume the responsibility of doing that because maybe it's their property, maybe it's rented by them,
Yeah.
etc. Or models have to be organized by them, or some permissions have to be organized by them. So that's also a part of deliverables, but maybe not your deliverables, but deliverables of the client.
Nice.
Right?
Yeah.
So ideally, an email describing all these things, or if you want to put it as terms and conditions in your invoice itself, you can do that. But you'll have to kind of play with your format of your invoice to be able to then accommodate these things as a separate page or whatever. But some basic things I want to go through is like a checklist of what are the things that are essential in you can call it a contract, or you can call it an invoice, or however you want to call it. Maybe just let's call it a communication or contractual document.
Right.
So first thing is your complete address with your tax numbers. See, anyway, you have to have a PAN ID.
Yeah.
For any kind of income, etc., that PAN ID must be there.
Right.
GST is optional based on turnover.
Right.
But assuming that you are already doing that kind of money, then GST is also very, very important.
Very true.
Okay. Your details, including address, the client's details, including address, including their GST, etc., has to be on that piece of paper. Now, besides that, you are also at times, you may mention that shoot to be done in this location, the cost of the location to be borne by the client. So any of these terms which are, could be additional costs. Those additional costs besides your amount of money or that your the actual payment, that must be mentioned separately.
Nice.
You cannot assume that they will know these things or they will take it as okay, इसके पास नहीं जा रहा है तो हमें देना पड़ेगा. No, it has to be mentioned because sometimes clients feel that it's the only amount they need to pay, whereas they could be hiring maybe a makeup artist and which doesn't come from your pocket, which they have to pay separately. So those details must be mentioned very clearly. Besides that, if you feel that there are certain peculiar deliverables on your side, for instance, if they want, let's say you're doing maybe a wedding, right? So they want a printed album at the end of it, then it must be accounted for, must be mentioned very clearly that this is what we need to do.
Perfect.
Not only is the shooting to be done, but the editing is to be done. But beyond the editing, we also need to make up prints and an album for the deliverables and things like that. Now, of course, costing, in the last time we said that, okay, how do you cost your particular services? Besides that, there are certain kind of costs that may be attributable to a shoot, right? This is what we spoke about yesterday. And if those costs are not as a part of your amount of money, then they must be mentioned separately.
Understood.
So that, let's say, if you are hiring a food stylist for a restaurant.
So these could be the external costs that we have to incur because they're not part of a team.
And they're not part of your team. Plus, you don't, it's not a part of what comes to you. It could be either paid directly to the food stylist as well. But do mention it that, this is the amount that's been settled, but that is between the client and the stylist. Or even if it is to be paid by you, mention it so that they know that it is going to go through you to the stylist.
So they're clear that there are additional costs attached.
Absolutely.
Nice.
So everything has to be transparent. Now, one thing I want to talk about is terms of payment. Now, that is something that is very important from the clarity point of view. Because a lot of times what happens is that, especially when it comes to services, the moment services are provided, cost has been incurred. So you land up at the location for shoot with a crew, with gear and everything. You spend the day shooting. That means all your cost has been incurred already.
Very true.
Even if you don't deliver a picture, your costs have spent.
The meter is running and
Absolutely
we have to pay that anyway.
So a lot of times what photographers and videographers do is they insist on a certain amount of money, typically a 50 to 60%
advance.
As an advance. Right. So to commission a project or to start the prep work on the project, uh, the client is expected to pay in advance, and which is absolutely fine. It's unless, of course, they're clients you've known for a while and then you've worked with, and there's no problem with payments and things like that. So it's okay to then take it on a
But
regular
on
basis.
that, I've had this issue that with corporates, when
Yeah.
dealing with corporates, if you're somebody who does corporate films,
Yeah.
and if you're somebody who works with a lot of big MNCs and big companies, they don't have a habit of paying advances.
Correct.
They always say we will pay later. What does one do in that case?
So in that case, contracts and what they call work orders or purchase orders.
Yeah.
Those are very, very important. We've got into trouble with companies where we've done business on their word and on emails, but without a purchase order or without a work order, and we've got stuck for long periods of time without payment because it doesn't matter who in the team commissions it. Maybe it's the person in the marketing, maybe it's his mistake. He commissioned an order, but he didn't follow his company's own protocol. Right. But the problem is that we don't get paid.
Very true.
He will probably not. He will still get a salary, but we will not get paid for it.
Very
So insist on a work order, insist on a purchase order before you start working with a corporate, and then they don't have a problem with that till the time. And we've also got advances from corporates also.
Yes, we have
And
sometimes.
yes, they do, and they don't. So especially, let's say if you have to hire models.
Yeah, and especially that cost is very big
Very
because
big.
when you're doing advertisements, when you're working for commercials, the actors that you hire are huge money. And if that money is huge, then you can actually ask your brand or the agency who you're working for advances.
Very true. Also, if there are, if there's a whole crew that has to travel to a location, that itself can be a huge cost.
Traveling costs is always there.
And they will mostly either have their own travel agency book it for you, or they make sure that you get a certain amount of advance payment, or you break up the invoice into 2 or 3 parts, and they will pay you 100% of maybe a first invoice, but they'll hold invoice 2 and invoice 3 for after the delivery is done. So something of that sort. So don't be afraid to be creative, and don't be afraid to ask for an advance, because nobody wants to pay you in advance, right? Unless you actually ask.
And most of the people don't even want to pay us at all.
Oh yeah, that's true. I mean, it's like a lot of people say, okay, we will promote you somewhere or the other. You can use
barters and collaborations only work if you're getting benefits out of them.
Yeah.
If somebody's trying to get work done for free, please avoid them.
Completely agree. Now, we spoke about deliverables. We spoke about expenses and things like that. Now, some of the other terms that people don't put in their contracts or invoices are, if things go wrong, let's say they have to reschedule the shoot.
Cancellation.
Or cancel the shoot.
Right.
Whose problem is it? Whose mistake is it? Right? And what happens if they've paid you in advance, but then they go ahead and cancel the shoot, or they go ahead and reschedule the shoot?
What happens to the advance?
But yeah, what happens to the advance? What happens if you've lost a day because they were not able to get something done, or they were not able to get permissions
we're
for
losing
the
money
location?
in that case.
Yeah, because see, it's a matter of opportunity cost.
Right.
Here. If you've kept a day for them, you've not booked something else for that day.
Very true.
So for you, that day is a waste. That means that money is a waste.
Very true.
I mean, for you, you didn't make any money that day.
Got it.
Right? So if they've paid you in advance, they have to honor that day. Okay? So this is difficult to ensure and difficult to enforce, but it's based on your relationship with the client. So ideally, if you let them know ahead of time that any cancellations or any kind of rescheduling, there will be an additional cost to it. So they will make sure that they don't take your time for granted.
Got it.
Right? Okay, I mean, we've been in situations where we've had last minute rescheduling and we've not charged the client because we know that this client has good, fair intentions and it must have been a strong enough reason. And of course, they are regular clients of ours. So it's your choice. But the fact is, do let them know that any rescheduling or any cancellation, there may be a cost for it.
Understood. And that has to be made clear right in the beginning.
Right
so
in the beginning.
There are no mishaps happening in future and you do not get stuck without getting paid.
So, for instance, we charge, in case of cancellations, if we have an amount already received in advance, If we have to refund it, we do charge a penalty for
Yeah.
refund. So let's say as much as maybe 20% for not having utilized our time.
Right.
So they will get, let's say, if they've given us 50% minus 20% or whatever percentage is agreed upon, we will keep that and the rest we will give back.
Got it.
But ideally, keep it known to them, keep it on the paper so that there is no surprises. At the
Perfect.
end.
Works.
Okay. The other thing is that you have to worry about things like copyright.
Right.
Now, that is a very, very tricky topic when it comes to clients in India.
Yeah, because I understand that there are times when people want to post their work, but the client is very apprehensive about
Yeah.
it and they don't really allow you, especially in weddings. And
Yeah.
if you are working for another wedding photographer,
Yeah.
they will not allow you to post that work.
Correct.
So we have to, I think, even when we're sub-vendoring for somebody else, we're working for somebody else, we need to have terms there where you ask them in written that whether you can host that work on your profile or not.
Very well said. And in fact, we covered that in our section on portfolios as well.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
how do you build your portfolio, because you are actually using some work that was shot for someone else
Very true.
in your portfolio. So you should have it on paper in agreement from them that that you can use this work for your. Now, of course, you have to clarify to the client that you are not going to use it for commercial purpose.
Got it.
Right? Now, commercial purpose means that you're not directly selling their images to someone. You can use it commercially to build a portfolio, but not sell those images. Even if, let's say, there are stock images, you cannot use a client's images for
Of course
stock.
not. And even if you've shot for somebody, let's say a travel film, or
Yeah.
you've shot aerial shots with somebody's at somebody's location, those rights still remain with the client because he's the one who's paid for them.
That's correct.
And you have to take permissions from them if you want to sell it through any stock website.
Very true. But you don't have to take permissions for them if you want to use it for your portfolio.
Yeah.
So the way it works is that you are in a way your creator's copyright stays with you. That means they cannot dispute the fact that you've created
Right.
it.
Not at all.
Hence, can use it for portfolio.
Right.
But to sell it, it is the right of the person who has paid for it. So that's a little bit of a difference there.
Got it.
Now, you are also, in a way, by accepting money, transferring the rights of usage
Right.
for commercial purposes to the client.
Yeah, and on just on that, I've seen many times if you're dealing with international photographers or filmmakers, or even digital artists for that matter, sound designers, and especially in the sound industry, if you use a background score, they always have a time limit, or they have a usage limit, that these many plays on YouTube, or these many times you can use it to reproduce content and stuff like that. So you have to be very careful with that as well.
Yeah, and this doesn't happen in India. I don't think the familiarity of this concept is not within in
No, I think it's coming because there are a lot of international websites and a lot of independent artists which are coming up. Like, for example, we did a music video, and you know the artist Alpha's World.
Yeah.
So we did a music video with him, and he leased his background for his beats. And that's for a particular time, not on time, but particular number of views that he gets on YouTube.
Okay.
And once those views cross, he has to either pay a royalty to them or renew a new or a higher contract.
Interesting. And the same rules apply to photographs or films as well.
And even commercial versus personal use.
Yeah.
If somebody is reselling that product ahead, then you need to charge them a royalty and a premium.
Correct.
But if they're directly consuming it for their own usage, then it's a different ballgame altogether.
And this is what is called limited time usage.
Yes.
And I have seen this internationally, that even photographers who are selling one image are able to do it for a certain number of impressions, a certain amount of time, or things like that, or a certain purpose. That if you're using it in an ad, you cannot use it in a magazine, or you cannot use it in an article for that matter.
So every broadcasting right, every digital consumption right is at a different level. If you are taking broadcasting rights, you need to charge differently. If you are giving them digital consumption rights, which is YouTube or any other social media platform, it's a different thing altogether.
Absolutely. So this is as far as the basic, making sure that your basic rights are protected for usage of that content.
Right.
Now, one of the things that people must take care of is that in case of, let's say, you get injured before the shoot and you're not able to keep the dates.
Got it.
What happens in that case? Or, for instance, Um, uh, Assume that I had scheduled in 2020 a shoot on the 25th of March,
Right.
right? But on the 20th of March, lockdown happened, right?
Right.
So
Right.
what happens in that case? What happens to the money in that case?
Right.
Ideally, all these things need to be put in some kind of terms and conditions that if it is an act of God,
Yeah.
or if it is things beyond your control, right? Who's liable?
Got it.
Do you give the money back? Do you keep the money?
Do you share the expenses?
You share the expenses. Let's say if you have already incurred costs, you've hired models, or if you hired a
Got it.
stylist, or there's some pre-work that has already been done. Let's say if I'm writing a script and I've already hired a script writer, which obviously has to be done before the
Right.
shoot.
Right.
Do they still keep the money, or do they also give it back? Ideally, these things must be
Nice.
discussed. They need to know, the client needs to know what is their, what do they get back,
Got it.
even if the shoot does not happen. Okay. And these things happen. I mean, there is stuff that can happen, and if stuff has to go wrong, it will go wrong. But we like to say a little prayer at the beginning of every shoot. But the thing is that you need to know that these things can happen, and
Definitely.
you must talk about it to the client.
Definitely.
Now, before I don't have much to add here. Just a few more things. One is that beyond the shoot, there are some costs to be incurred
Right.
as well,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
In case of videos, there could be editing, there
Yeah.
could be certain color corrections,
Multiple drafts.
there could be multiple rounds of edit.
Subtitling to
yeah.
be done. I mean, that's a cost. People don't consider subtitling to be a cost, but it is actually a cost.
Voiceovers,
Yeah.
there could be mastering, etc. to
Yeah,
be
yeah,
done, mixing to be done, etc. Or in terms of stills, there could be certain editing to be done,
Manipulations to be done.
manipulations.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, that's a great point you brought up. Now, what photographers actually do is that they may edit for color or for contrast or for minor blemishes and things like that in an image. But clients may want that, okay, you take out this main thing from here and put it in another picture and then make it different. Now, those are photo manipulations. They are not really editing,
No.
right? Or they're called recompositions,
Yeah.
right? Or compositing. But the fact is, they are typically not in the purview of editing of photographs, right? So if the client expects you to create a new image based on elements that you may have clicked, you don't need to give that free. That
Nice.
is a separate project, and that's a separate cost.
Yeah,
for
but I
it.
mean, always charge for extra work. Even if one of your clients calls you for delivery to his house, charge him fuel.
Yeah.
If somebody asks you for a pen drive for delivery of the project, not an e delivery,
Yeah.
ask them for a pen drive or ask them to pay for the pen drive.
Correct. So anything that you are incurring on their behalf, you are not liable to pay that from your pocket,
it.
and it's okay to tell the client that these are additional costs. Ideally, if you can preempt them, great. If you can't preempt them, then before you complete the deal,
Right.
make sure that you've got all your expenses, you've got all your payments, and that's when you hand over.
Got it.
But if you're covered by a contract or if you're covered by a purchase order, now see, purchase order is the same thing. Purchase order is terms and conditions, but from the client side.
Got it.
So if you have your invoice with terms and conditions or a purchase order with terms and conditions, you are actually safe.
Lovely.
Right? So you can go ahead and do work even if you don't get an advance. But I would suggest that for large reputable companies, not necessarily for very, very small
Got
shops.
it.
There still, I would say,
Have an advance.
have an advance and then work
Yeah.
with it.
And
Okay.
guys, when you're calculating advance, we discussed it in the pricing session. I have discussed it over a lot of times. Please cover all your costs in your advance, because there are some basic costs. Maybe you're hiring an assistant, maybe you are traveling to a place, maybe there is flights involved. Get that covered in your advance, because believe me, there are times when the payments get stalled, they
Yeah.
get delayed. You might not get that payment for literally 3 months. You will have to still incur them, so be very
Yeah.
careful.
And it's okay to tell the client that, okay, as far as my own component is concerned, that can come in later. But if
Yeah.
I'm incurring a cost for you, for instance, if I'm paying for my travel, or if I'm paying for models, or if I'm paying for location or
Right.
whatever, I still have to pay those people,
Right.
right? So pay them or pay me so that I can pay them for that
Understood.
amount. My money can come after the product has been delivered. So, which is also fine, and they will understand that
Very true.
you are not running their company, you're not financing their company, and it comes to that. If you're paying for them, that means you're financing them.
Very
right?
true.
So, it's best to keep that clean, keep that clear, and just do good business.
Amazing. I mean, I think a lot of these tips are going to help you guys to develop better relationships with your clients, because
Correct.
if everything is clear, there are lesser hiccups, there are lesser screw ups, and you do not ruin relationships, which is very important for our industry or any industry.
Perfect. And there are many sample contracts, a very sample, terms and conditions available online.
Right.
So do a scan, do a check for
Right.
that. You will get good samples for that.
And plus, these pointers, what we've mentioned today, are in the description. Do check it out. And of course, if you have any questions, you can always text us on Instagram. That's at ShootGuru on Instagram, and you can tag me, Kshitij, or you can tag Kabir, and either of us will answer any of your questions if you get stuck anywhere. And if you need really good legal advice, we've got lawyers for you. Let us know, and we'll connect you with the right people.
Absolutely. We have been working in the industry for a long time, so
Yeah.
we know most of the things that can go wrong, and we would love to help out.
And there are some of the people who are our friends who are lawyers actually, and they've seen
Correct.
us go through a lot, and they've advised us on many occasions. So they kind of understand our industry as well. So if you need somebody for a specific case or a specific kind of a suggestion or consultation, do let us know.
Including copyrights for
Including
that.
copyrights, yes.
Perfect.
So any last words we want to give to our, any last advice we want to give to our viewers today?
Well, keep it clean, keep it documented. There is no shame in asking for your money that you've earned from the client, if it is, even if it's in terms of an advance. And sometimes, for a fussy client, it's okay to walk away from work if you have a bad gut feeling about them.
Yeah.
So
We've
you
done
know
it.
what? Yes,
We've done it a
we've
lot
done
of
that.
times.
So if you feel that they are pushing you too much, and
Yeah.
if they are trying to pin you down or negotiating too much, and you don't feel good about it, it's okay to walk away.
It's okay to walk away from money, because believe me, if you don't, you end up spending more than you were originally earning from that project.
Absolutely right.
So guys, thank you for attending this session today. I know it has been quite interesting, and this is a topic which when I started my business, I did not know anything about, and I feel that you guys should know it. So as I always say, learn from our mistakes and please don't make them. Start making some of your own and share them with us so that we also learn from you.
Thank you. Thank you for spending time with us.
Thank you guys. Take care. Have a safe week ahead. Please be careful, and please be safe and healthy. Ciao.